I walked into the maternity floor with a teddy bear and a name already picked out. 3 words from my mother-in-law turned that bear into dead weight. Don't go in. I left my office early like I'd stolen something valuable, time. The kind you don't get back. Guys on my team slapped my shoulder, told me go be a dad. And I took it in like oxygen. The teddy bear sat upright in the passenger seat-belted like a joke that wasn't a joke. I'd bought it 2 days ago and kept it hidden in my trunk so Jessica wouldn't see it and start crying again. She'd been doing that lately. Happy tears, scared tears, the kind that made me hold her longer and talk softer. Traffic didn't bother me. The lights didn't bother me. Nothing touched me. My head was full of small things. The first time he'd wrap his fingers around mine, the weight of him, the smell of clean blankets and baby shampoo. I'd already rehearsed the words I'd say to Jessica. I'd already pictured her face when I walked in. St. Luke's Medical Center came up out of the afternoon like a promise. I parked, grabbed the bear, straightened my shirt like that mattered, and moved fast through the lobby. Elevators. 4th floor. Maternity. The hall hit me with that hospital mix. Disinfectant and warm air. And underneath it, something else. Tension. Quiet voices. A nurse giving someone directions too gently. I saw the room number at the end of the corridor. My pace didn't slow until a figure stepped out from the doorway like she'd been waiting for a signal. Linda Parker. My mother-in-law looked smaller than usual, but not softer. Her eyes were red, skin shiny from wiped tears. She held herself tight, shoulders up, arms crossed like she was bracing for impact. When she saw me, her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like she had to force the words through. "Ethan," she said, voice thin, "don't go in." I stopped 2 steps away, a teddy bear hanging at my side. "What?" Her hands started trembling. She hid them by gripping her own elbows. She glanced over her shoulder into the room like someone might overhear her warning. Like the room was dangerous. "Just please. Not yet. Not yet." 3 harmless syllables that didn't belong in a day like this. My heart didn't race. It dropped. That's what it did. Like a weight slipping off a ledge. "Linda," I said, steady, because I was steady. "Move." She didn't. She shifted wider in the doorway. Guard, not grandmother. Her eyes stayed on mine, but they weren't asking. They were begging and blocking at the same time. "What happened?" I asked. Her lips pressed together hard. A tear broke loose and tracked down the side of her nose. She shook her head once, small and sharp. "Ethan," she whispered, like the name itself was a warning. "Don't go in." I looked past her shoulder and saw the edge of a bright room. I heard a soft monitor beep, heard a newborn cry, thin, real, alive. My grip tightened on the teddy bear until its fur flattened under my fingers. Then I stepped closer, close enough to smell her perfume under the hospital air, and put my hand on the doorframe. "Get out of the way," I said, and my voice wasn't loud, just final. The door swung inward like any other door. That was the first insult, how normal it looked. Bright room, clean sheets, the soft beep of a monitor keeping time like a metronome. A nurse near the counter checking something on a clipboard. Balloons in the corner that said "It's a boy" in shiny blue letters. Jessica sat up in the bed, hair pulled back, face pale and drained in that post-labor way I'd read about and tried not to imagine. She looked smaller too. Not fragile, just used up. Her eyes snapped to mine the second I stepped in. For half a heartbeat, she looked relieved. Then it vanished. She held the baby against her chest, wrapped tight in a white blanket. I expected the moment to hit me like a wave, pride, awe, some kind of spiritual cliche. Instead, the room went cold. Not from the air. From meth. I walked closer without meaning to. Slow steps. The bear is still hanging from my hand like I'd forgotten it existed. The baby turned his head slightly, and I saw him. I really saw him. Skin tone, features, hair, the shape of his nose. The kind of clarity you don't need a lab for. My brain tried to throw up excuses, newborn swelling, lighting, genetics are weird, but they died before they formed. My stomach tightened hard, like my body was trying to protect my heart by bracing the frame around it. Jessica's lower lip trembled. She didn't smile. She didn't say my name. The nurse glanced up and gave me the practiced, cheerful look they give dads. Like you're a hero just for showing up. "Hi, Dad?" she said, already moving toward me with a pen in her hand like it was a baton. That, the word landed wrong. Heavy. Incorrect. She held out the clipboard. "We'll need a couple signatures when you're ready. Birth certificate paperwork, acknowledgement forms, standard stuff." My eyes went to the paper, but the words swam. Signature lines, boxes, legal language, the kind of thing you sign without reading because you trust the person next to you. Only now the person next to me wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked back at the baby. My mind snapped forward past the emotional wreckage into something colder and clearer. If I sign, I don't just accept a baby. I accept responsibility. Court doesn't care about my shock. A court cares about ink. I felt my jaw lock. Jessica finally spoke, and her voice was small. Too small for what she'd done. "Ethan." I raised my hand. Not aggressive, just a stop sign. The nurse hesitated. "Sir." I didn't look at her. I stared at Jessica, because she was the only thing in the room that mattered now. My voice came out calm, which surprised me. "Whose baby is that?" Jessica flinched like I'd slapped her with the question. Linda was behind me in the doorway, silent as a shadow. I could feel her there, feel the way she tried to hold this back like it was a spill on a clean floor. Jessica's eyes filled again. She shook her head once, slow. "Ethan, please," she whispered. The nurse's smile faded. "Is there a problem?" I took the clipboard from her without signing anything, scanned the top line, found my name printed where it didn't belong, and handed it back like it was contaminated. "Yeah," I said, finally turning to the nurse. "There's a problem." Then I looked back at my wife and said it again. Quieter this time, sharper. "Whose baby is that?" Jessica didn't answer. She just stared at me like I'd become someone else in a single question. That silence did something to my brain. It didn't make me panic. It made me rewind. Fast. 9 months in reverse, like someone yanking film through a projector until the images blur. Fertility clinic waiting rooms with soft music and fake plants. Calendars marked with ovulation windows like we were running a business instead of trying to make a kid. Jessica was crying in the shower where she thought I couldn't hear her. Me pretending I didn't hear it because she needed dignity more than she needed comfort. "I'm Ethan Brooks, 38. The guy people call when something needs to be handled without drama. At work, I'm the steady one. The one who doesn't miss deadlines, doesn't lose his temper in meetings, and doesn't promise what he can't deliver. At home, I was the same. Mortgage paid early. Oil changes on schedule. Date nights planned because love, to me, wasn't a mood. It was a decision you reinforced. That's why the lie worked. Jessica didn't have to fight my chaos. She just had to steer my consistency. The day she told me she was pregnant, she didn't act guilty. She acted grateful. She sat on the edge of the couch with the test in her hand and tears in her eyes and said, "We did it." Like the struggle had bonded us. Like the pain had earned us something. I remember lifting her off the floor and spinning her once. Careful because she was fragile. Because I was already treating her like she carried glass inside her. Then it was the nursery. A weekend at Home Depot picking paint samples. The soft green she liked. The one she said felt safe. I painted that room with clean edges and 2 coats because that's who I am. I don't do half work. I don't do shortcuts. We had a stack of parenting books on the coffee table. I highlighted sections like I was studying for an exam. Sleep schedules. Swaddling methods. Support your partner. I did all of it like a man who wanted to be ready. Ultrasound photos lived on my desk at the office. Guys would walk by and grin, nod like they respected me more now. "Brooks is gonna be a dad," they'd say. I didn't correct them because why would I? It was my life. My future. Jessica played her part perfectly. She'd rest her hand on her stomach while we watched TV and guide my hand there too, letting me feel the little kicks. She'd text me updates after appointments. Heartbeat strong. The doctor says everything looks great. She'd send me pictures of baby clothes in stores and ask, "This one?" Like it mattered. Like it was ours. and I bought into it because the whole story fit my world. Stable wife, stable house, a stable man finally getting the one thing stability doesn't guarantee. Now, standing in that hospital room, I saw the other version running underneath it all, the version Jessica never showed me. The version where every sweet moment was a cover. Every ultrasound photo on my desk wasn't a memory. It was a prop. Every time she held my hand to her belly, it wasn't intimacy. It was management. And that's what hit hardest. Not just that she cheated. That she made my discipline, the thing I was proud of, into the perfect tool to trap me. The nurse left. Linda closed the door behind her like she was sealing a container. Jessica's breathing was uneven. She clutched the baby tighter, rocking him like motion could solve math. "Ethan," she said again, voice cracking. "Please just listen." I stayed standing. I didn't go closer. I didn't touch the bed. The teddy bear sat on the chair by the wall now, face tilted toward the ceiling like it had given up. "Talk," I said. She swallowed hard. Her eyes flicked to the door, to her mother, then back to me, like she needed backup to say it. "It was a mistake," she started. I gave her nothing. Not anger, not forgiveness, just my attention, flat and patient. Her shoulders shook. "I didn't plan," she tried again. Linda stepped forward, voice low and urgent. "Ethan, please. She's been through a lot. The baby's here. Let's not do this right now." That sentence told me everything about Linda Parker. She didn't see the truth as necessary. She saw it as inconvenient. Jessica sniffed, then forced herself upright like she was switching tactics. "You love me," she said. "You wanted this. You wanted to be a father." I stared at her. "Not like this." Her eyes hardened for a second, just a flash, before the tears returned. "Ethan, you don't understand what happens if you don't sign." There it was. Not a confession. A pitch. She reached toward the bedside table and pulled the clipboard closer like it was a life raft. Her hand shook, but her aim didn't. She held it out to me, pen already in her fingers. "Just sign it," she said. "Please. We'll figure everything out later." Later. After the ink. After the legal lock clicks shut. Linda nodded along like this was reasonable. "It doesn't have to change anything," she said, too fast. "You can sort it out privately. You too can." I cut her off with a look. Not loud, just sharp enough to make her stop. I turned back to Jessica. "Whose kid is it?" Jessica's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes dropped to the baby like she could hide behind him. "Say his name," I said. Silence. My voice stayed level. "Say, hi, name." Her throat moved. "Daniel," she whispered. "Daniel Navarro." The name didn't sting the way it should have. It landed like a file label, something I could track. Jessica leaned forward, desperate now. "Ethan, I'm scared. I messed up and I'm trying to fix it. If you sign, the baby's protected. We're protected." "No," I said. She blinked. "No." I took a step closer, finally, and kept my hands at my sides. "No signature. No agreement. No, we'll figure it out." Linda's voice rose. "Ethan, don't punish the baby." "Don't," I said, and it wasn't a shout. It was a line drawn in concrete. Jessica's eyes widened like she hadn't expected resistance, like she'd expected my love to be a lever she could pull. "You promised," she said. "You promised you'd be here." "I promised to be your husband," I said. "I didn't promise to be your cover story." She flinched. I pointed at the paperwork, not touching it. "I'm not signing anything until there's a DNA test. And I want it documented that I refused." Jessica stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Linda looked like she might faint. Good. Because the moment she held out that pen, I understood the truth underneath the tears. This wasn't an accident that happened to me. This was a trap they wanted me to agree to. I left the hospital without a scene. No yelling. No threats. Just a clean exit. In the parking garage, the teddy bear sat in my passenger seat again, still buckled in. I didn't look at it on the drive home. I kept my eyes on the road and my hands steady on the wheel like muscle memory could keep my head from splitting. Our house looked the same as always. Same porch light. Jessica insisted on hanging even when it wasn't a holiday. Same neat yard I kept trimmed because order matters. But the second I stepped inside, it didn't feel like my home. Felt like a set. I didn't wander. I didn't sit down. I walked straight to the kitchen counter where Jessica's laptop usually lived. There it was, plugged in like a pet. I opened it. The screen lit up, familiar and stupidly calm. Password prompt. I typed the anniversary date without thinking. She never bothered to change it. That detail hit me like a quiet insult. How safe she felt in the lie. How sure she was I'd never check. The desktop is loaded. Her wallpaper was a soft photo of the nursery. Green walls, white crib, the mobile we'd picked together. I clicked the email icon. The inbox looked normal. Too normal. A few group threads with Linda. Baby store promos. Appointment reminders. Nothing you could use in court. Nothing that explained anything. Then I remembered something Jessica always did. She drafted emotional messages and never sent them. She'd say it helped her process. I clicked drafts. The list loaded, and my chest tightened immediately. Not one or two. Dozens. Subject lines that weren't even trying to be innocent. We need to be careful. Staying quiet. He can't know. Birth certificate plan. My hand didn't shake. My stomach did. I opened the first one. It was dated months back, early in the pregnancy. No typos. No panic. It reads like a plan written by someone calm. She told him to stay away from public places near our neighborhood. Told him not to like or comment on anything connected to her. Told him they had to act like strangers until the baby was secured. Secured. I opened another. Jessica wrote about me like I was a tool she admired. Ethan will be a wonderful father, one draft said. He's stable. He's reliable. That's why this has to work. Another. Once his name is on the certificate, it's done. Then we can handle the rest later. Later again. Always later. Always after the irreversible part. I kept clicking, one draft after another, and the pattern sharpened into something undeniable. She wasn't hiding a mistake. She was running a timeline. She wrote about doctor appointments and how I never missed them. She wrote about how I trust paperwork and how hospitals move fast, so I'd sign without thinking. She asked Daniel to give her space so I wouldn't get suspicious. She reassured him she'd keep Ethan focused on the baby stuff. Focused. Managed. Directed. Then I found the worst one, the one that made the room tilt. A draft written a few weeks before delivery. I need you to understand, she wrote. This is the only way. If Ethan signs, the baby has a father on paper. If he doesn't, it gets complicated. You can't be involved right now. Ethan can never find out until it's too late. Too late. I sat down then, not because I was weak, but because my legs decided for me. The house was quiet. The nursery door down the hall was cracked open, showing a slice of pale green wall like a wound. I stared at the screen and felt something ugly settle into place. Something that wasn't rage yet. It was clear, clean and brutal, because this wasn't a messy confession. It was months of preparation. My wife didn't fall into betrayal. She engineered it. And the goal wasn't love or comfort or even survival. The goal was my name on a line. I didn't drink, didn't eat, didn't pace the house like a movie. I worked. First thing, I unplugged the laptop and carried it to my office like it was evidence, because that's what it was. I grabbed a notepad and wrote the facts down in clean lines, dates, subjects, names, before my brain tried to soften anything. Then I called Mark Bennett. Mark picked up on the second ring. You at the hospital? No, I said. I need you at my house. Now. A pause. What happened? Bring a drive, I said. And don't talk about it on the phone. 15 minutes later, Mark walked in with that look he gets when he knows this isn't small. He's the kind of guy who reads contracts for fun, the kind of friend you want when things stop being personal and start being legal. He saw my face and didn't ask for drama. Just nodded. Show me. I set the laptop on the desk and opened the drafts again. Mark leaned in, eyes scanning, expression tightening in slow motion. This is premeditated, he said finally. Yeah, I said. I know. We moved like two men who've been in conference rooms long enough to understand what courts respect. Copies, timestamps, chains of custody, and calm. Mark plugged in the drive. We exported everything. Screenshots with dates visible. Full email headers where we could get them. We saved them in folders labeled by month. We backed it up twice, 2 drives, 2 locations. Mark recorded a quick note on his phone. Time, date, what we copied. From where, in case anyone tried to call it altered. Then we built the timeline. Fertility clinic appointments. Pregnancy announcement date. Draft email dates. Mentions of birth certificate plan. Every piece lined up like a row of nails. When the last file was transferred, I finally made the next call. Coleman and Shaw, how can I help you? A receptionist said. Richard Coleman, I replied. I need him today. What is this regarding? Paternity and fraud, I said. Hospital. Birth certificate. That got me transferred fast. Richard's voice came on, older, steady. This is Coleman. I gave him the clean version, no emotion, just facts. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he exhaled once, like he'd heard this song before. Rule 1, he said. Don't sign anything. Rule 2, document everything. Rule 3, come in immediately with copies. I looked at Mark. Mark nodded once. For the first time since Linda's 3 words, I felt the shift. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was steering. The DNA test wasn't dramatic. No storm clouds. No cinematic pause. It was a PDF attachment from the lab, sent to Richard's office and forwarded to me with a single line in his email. Call me. I was at my desk when I opened it. Mark sat across from me, silent, watching my face instead of the screen. Probability of paternity 0%. No ambiguity. No maybe. Just the cleanest kind of truth. I stared at it longer than I needed to, not because I didn't understand it, but because my brain wanted the finality to feel like relief. Didn't. Felt like a door closing. Mark let out a slow breath. So that's done. Yeah, I said. My voice didn't shake. That's done. My phone rang a minute later. Richard. I answered. I saw it. Good, he said. Now listen carefully. His tone wasn't celebratory. It was controlled, like he was walking me toward something heavy. The DNA result is solid, he said. But we're not finished. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the report, the zeros staring back like a dare. What do you mean? She filed, Richard said. I didn't speak. He continued, precise. Your wife submitted the birth certificate paperwork, and she listed you as the father. My body wants still. I felt it in my chest first. Something tightening, not panic, more like pressure building in a sealed container. I didn't sign, I said, each word spaced out. I refused. At the hospital. I know, he replied. That's why this matters. She did it anyway. The room sharpened around me. The edges got clear. The silence got loud. Mark's eyebrows lifted. He mouthed, what? I held up a hand to keep him quiet. Richard kept talking. Depending on the state procedures and what was submitted, this can shift from a family dispute into something the court takes very seriously. At minimum, it supports your case for disestablishing paternity. At worst for her, if we can show intent and misrepresentation, it becomes documented attempted fraud. Fraud. That word didn't make me angry. It made me cold. Because cheating is personal. Ugly but personal. This wasn't personal anymore. This was a move. A legal move. A signature I didn't give was replaced by a claim she decided to make for me. My jaw locked so hard my teeth ached. Do not contact her about this, Richard said. Don't give her a chance to twist your words. We'll handle it formally. You have the evidence, you have the DNA report, and you have your refusal documented. We're going to file immediately. I looked at the report again. 0%. A number that should have ended the story. Instead, it was just the start of the next betrayal. Okay, I said. That's it. Mark asked when I hung up. I looked at him. She put my name on it anyway. Mark's face hardened. That's insane. No, I said, standing up. That's calculated. I walked to the window and stared out at my quiet street. The same clean lawns, the same normal lives moving along like nothing ever breaks. I didn't feel like yelling. I didn't feel like begging. I didn't feel like collapsing. I felt one clear thing. She didn't just break trust. She tried to steal my future with paperwork. And I wasn't handling it privately anymore. The court doesn't care how you feel. That's why I liked being there. The air in the hallway was cold and dry, full of quiet footsteps and low conversations that didn't matter. Jessica sat on a bench with Linda beside her. Jessica wore a soft sweater and that hurt woman expression she used when she wanted people to approach gently. Linda kept her chin up like she was the injured party. Jessica looked at me once, long enough to try to hook something. Guilt, nostalgia, pity. I gave her nothing. Richard Coleman arrived with a thin folder that held my entire marriage in pieces. He shook my hand once, firm. "Stay calm, answer only what's asked," he said. "Let me do the work." We went in. The judge sat high and tired, like they'd seen every version of human selfishness and stopped being surprised years ago. Everyone stood, sat, the normal ritual. Jessica's attorney started with a story. Not facts, a story. He framed her as overwhelmed, scared, acting out of desperation. He said she feared abandonment. He said she believed Ethan me was the only stable father figure. He said the child's best interests should guide the court. Richard didn't flinch. When it was our turn, he stood like a man reading a receipt. "Your Honor," he said, "this is not a case of confusion or fear. This is a case of premeditation." He laid the timeline out first. Dates, draft emails, the repeated language, birth certificate, too late, secured. He introduced the DNA report, the lab's conclusion, 0, clear. Then he addressed the hospital. "My client refused to sign," Richard said. "He demanded a DNA test. He requested documentation of refusal. And yet the respondent proceeded to submit a birth certificate naming him as the father anyway. Jessica's attorney objected. The judge overruled. Richard kept going. He entered the draft emails as exhibits, one after another. Not all of them enough. The most damning lines in clean print. Jessica's face changed as they were read. Not crying now. Tight. Controlled. Like she knew the room could finally see what she'd been doing in the dark. Linda whispered to her urgently. Jessica shook her head, eyes glassy. Richard called me to testify. I stood, raised my right hand, swore the oath. My voice didn't waver. He asked me simple questions. My name, my age, my marriage length. Then he took me to the maternity floor. "Why were you there?" he asked. "To meet my son," I said. "What did you bring with you?" "A teddy bear." The judge's eyes lifted slightly at that, just a flicker of interest. "Describe what happened when you arrived," Richard said. "My mother-in-law blocked the doorway," I said. "She told me not to go in." "And when you went in?" I looked at Jessica for a second, then back to the judge. "I saw the baby. It was immediately clear he wasn't mine. The nurse tried to hand me birth certificate paperwork. I refused to sign anything and demanded a DNA test." "Did you ever consent to being listed as the father?" Richard asked. "No," I said. "Did you ever sign any acknowledgement of paternity?" he asked. "No." Jessica's attorney tried to cross-examine me into emotion. He asked if I loved my wife, if I'd promised to be a father, if I understood she was afraid. I answered with facts. Yes, I loved her. Yes, I promised to be a father to my child. No, fear doesn't give someone permission to commit fraud. That last line landed harder than I expected. Not because it was clever, because it was obvious. The judge leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning the exhibits. When the ruling came, it wasn't theatrical. It was clean. The judge spoke about the DNA report, the lack of consent, the documentation of refusal, the written evidence showing intent to secure my name before I could stop it. Then the judge said the words that shifted the room. "This court finds the respondent's actions were deliberate. Deliberate, not a mistake." Don't panic. Not confusion. He used another phrase after that, one that put weight on her choices. Attempted fraud. Jessica's attorney went still. Linda's face drained. Jessica looked like someone had finally turned the lights on in a room she'd been using for lies. And for the first time since St. Luke's, I felt the air change. Not sympathy anymore. Accountability. When it was over, there was no applause. No movie ending. Just papers gathered, chairs scraping, people filing out like they had errands. Richard shook my hand in the hallway. We'll finalize the disestablishment order and push the divorce through, he said. You did everything right. I nodded. Thank you. Mark was waiting near the doors. He didn't say much, just fell beside me the way men do when words aren't useful. Outside, the air was clean and cold. December air that wakes you up whether you want it or not. The courthouse steps felt higher on the way down, like gravity had changed. We walked to the parking lot in silence. At my car, Mark finally spoke. You okay? I looked at him. I don't know yet. That was the truth. Legally, I was free. No parental obligation. No signature binding me to a lie. The divorce was moving forward on a track that didn't require my emotions to cooperate. The trap failed. And still, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like being released from handcuffs you didn't know were on until they clicked open. I sat behind the wheel and didn't start the engine right away. My hands rested on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, the way my father taught me when he wanted me to take driving seriously. I thought about the man who'd walked into St. Luke's smiling. The man with the teddy bear and the daydreams. The man who believed a marriage was a fortress if you built it with enough discipline and love. That man was gone. Not broken, replaced. The version of me sitting here now wasn't softer. He wasn't more forgiving. He wasn't interested in being anyone's good guy while they wrote plans behind his back. He was sharper, more exact, harder to move with tears and speeches. Mark opened his door. You want to grab food? Not hungry, I said. He nodded like he understood. I started the car. The heater kicked on, blowing air that smelled like dust and old leather. Normal. As I pulled out of the lot, I didn't tell myself I won. That word is too clean for what this was. I told myself something more honest. I survived a trap. And now I get to rebuild on truth instead of hope.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.